What happens if you have a source system which is pushing you a file and you don't really know when? So how do you handle such scenarios in Azure Data Factory? Or what trigger is ideal in such scenarios? Or what is storage or event-based triggers in Azure Data Factory and how to use them? So if you have these kind of questions, you are in the right place. Hey there, what is up guys? My name is Zamir and welcome to the Azure Data Factory series. In the last video, we created a tumbling window trigger, understanding all the properties. So make sure that you watch the other videos before watching this one. As I said, in this video, I'll be discussing about the event-based triggers, but there are a few more topics within this event-based triggers. Let's take a look at the agenda. In this video, I'll be talking about storage event triggers, workflow of storage event triggers, the system variable, we'll be taking an example, and also creating an event-based trigger on Data Factory. So without spending any more time, let's get started. So what are storage event triggers? Storage event triggers are used in Data Factory to execute a pipeline based on events. So basically we are trying to follow something which is called as event-driven architecture. What this involves is the production, detection, consumption, and reaction to events. We'll be talking about this in more details in the upcoming slides. But as of now, think of a scenario where you have a storage account and a file is placed. So as soon as the file arrives or is deleted, you can execute a pipeline based on this. This is something where a storage event trigger is used. The good thing is that Data Factory and Synapse Analytics do have integration with Azure Event Grid, where Azure Event Grid is something which is used by storage event triggers for helping us react to the events. So what really happens is this event-based trigger, it serves as an active listener. So it's actively listening to any message that we have received in the event grid. And as soon as we receive that, what it will do is it will execute the associated Data Factory pipeline. So we understand this, but what is Azure Event Grid? So it's kind of a service which is a fully managed event service that enables you to easily manage any kind of events across different Azure services and application. So again, for an example, any kind of event such as file is deleted or a file is placed into your storage account will do what is will register this event into the event grid. So let's take this a little bit further and try to understand the workflow of storage event triggers. So storage event triggers have three main Azure services in picture right now. So you can see that you have Data Factory over here, you have event grid, and then you have the storage account. So you can see that the storage is the producer of that event and Data Factory is nothing but the consumer of this events. As soon as a file is placed into your storage account, a message will be published or that event will be registered in the Azure Event Grid. And then once that message is registered, a message will be again pushed to Azure Data Factory, which will include a lot of details, including the file name and the folder path. We'll be talking about that in the upcoming slides. Once that message is received by Data Factory, as I said in the previous slide, that the event trigger, it actually serves as an active listener to any kind of incoming message from the event grid, and it triggers the associated pipeline. So that's what happens once that message is received. Your trigger will execute that pipeline, and once that pipeline is executed over here, your data will be finally processed. So it can be maybe this same storage account or it can be a different storage account. It's not really matter, but in this case you can see that it's just pointing to the same storage account. So we understand the high level working of storage event triggers. Let's look at the system variable that it has to offer. So there are two system variables. The first one is folder path and the other one is file name, where the folder path is used for getting the exact details where the data resides, in which folder basically the data resides. And obviously you can also get the exact file name. What this means that for every file received, there will be an event registered in the event grid. For every event, you can execute a Data Factory pipeline. Let's take a look at this example that we have. In this example, imagine that you have a source which is providing you an incremental file, and it has access to your storage account, maybe using a SaaS token. At any time of the day, it pushes you this incremental file into your input folder. If you want to move this file from your input folder to your output folder, there are a couple of ways you can do that. One of them is just creating maybe a schedule trigger which will run after every 1 hour, or maybe you can create a tumbling window which will again work after every 15 minutes. But in this scenario, you really want to make sure that as soon as the data is arrived, you want to move that data into your blob storage. So the ideal way or the preferred solution would be to use event grid. So what really will happen is that this file, as soon as it's placed by your source system into your input folder, there will be an event which will be registered in the event grid, and then that message will be passed to the data factory. Data factory will pick up that file based on the two system variables which we were talking about, which is the folder path and the file name, and copy that data into the output folder. So this was an example. Now, without spending any more time, let's just go to data factory and create a storage event trigger. So here we are in our data factory. Let's just begin with creating a new data factory pipeline. So we have this pipeline created. Let me just add an activity to this, which is set variable activity. Once my activity is added, I will be creating two parameters, which is folder path and file name. Once I have that created, I will be creating a variable just to output the concatenation of the folder path and file name. So once I have the variable created, I will be heading back to the set variable, and let me just point this to this variable that we created in the pipeline. Once that is done, I will just add dynamic content in the value section and add concat. I'll be including the folder path and the file name into this value section, or into this section over here for adding dynamic content. Once I see that there are no errors, I will just click on OK. And yeah, once we are done with this, let's just create this trigger. And as you know, you can just go over here in new, select storage events. I will change the name to storage event triggers or trigger. Once I've renamed this, I will choose the type as the storage events, as I said. And once I've choose the type as storage events, I will be seeing an option over here to select the account, which is the storage account, obviously. So you have an option to directly choose the subscription from here, which is the data engineer at the YouTube for me at the moment. And then you can choose the storage account name and the container name. So you can either use the drop down over here, or you can specify the name as well directly. Make sure that you have a / at the beginning and at the end of your container name. Once this is in place, you can add the blob path over here. So in my case, I will be moving the file. I'll be trying to read the file if it is received in the input folder. So if you can see in my storage account over here, I have two different folders. One is the input, one is the output. I want to copy the data from input to output folder as soon as it is received. So in the input folder, you can see a file which is employee.csv. So what I'll be doing is I will be setting the folder path to input right over here. Make sure that again you add a / at the end. You have to specify either the extension or the file name. So in my case, I will be pointing it to a .csv file. So if there is any file which is placed in this directory which ends with the extension .csv, it will be considered as an event. An event will be registered. So the event type should also be decided over here. Two different types. One is blob created and the other one is blob deleted. So I'll choose blob created as of now. And once I've selected that, ignore empty blob means that if there is a file which is empty, the event will be not registered. But make sure that you always select this as no. I always select no over here. The reason is because I still want to execute the data factory pipeline and I want to result that there was no data received from the source. So in case if there is any issue, I can reach out to them rather than the event not triggered at all or the pipeline not triggered at all. As soon as we choose no over here, you can click on start trigger on creation. Now for this video, I'll not be really creating this because I don't really have an event grid created on my subscription. But if you guys want to go into this and have a deep dive, make sure that you comment and reach out to me. If this video helped you in any way, make sure that you like the video. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.